Pokemon is known for three things: wanting these awesome creatures to exist, epic evolutions, and rivals. The Pokemon trainers that challenge you at nearly every step of the way. But not every rival is a Gary Oak or an Harmonia. Some fall by the wayside, and others rise to the top, because they all have different things going for them, and that is what makes their rivalry more or less dynamic. Silver, Sasuke, Thief, call him whatever, he's a standout outcast. This redheaded trainer lacks in certain categories, to the point that his story becomes more than just a simple rivalry. And for those that ask, my opinion is subjective. Personally, Hugh and Gary are my favorite rivals. But to the point of this video, there are nonetheless flaws that turn a leaf over and actually make Silver redeemable and meaningful. And it starts on the flip side of a perspective. Generally speaking, a rival fulfills one, two, or all three of these aspects that coincide with the player's journey as a Pokemon trainer. 1. They are your foil. 2. They are a challenge in battle. And 3. They have their own stakes during the storyline. Silver is introduced as a belligerent and unlawful individual. Sneaking in and stealing a Pokemon is not only awful, but also so different from rival figures of the time. From across several generations, he sets an infamous starting point for an inevitably anticlimactic rivalry. Storytelling in Pokemon up to that point was not at a level you could call game-changing. The pattern usually followed conflict with an antagonistic team while pursuing a journey to discover the world alongside your companions and Pokemon. Something concerning the legendary Pokemon would happen, usually because of the evil team, and then bam, the road to the Pokemon League is open. The rival serves to remind you of your journey's purpose. They are a foil and good training, and they have their own journey that mirrors your own. That's been the formula. So, where does Silver fall into this? Silver is not what you would call an effective rival. In a paradoxical way, you actually end up being the effective rival. Because in being confronted by the gloomy and reckless Silver, your strengths reveal his weaknesses. Your indomitable spirit brings out his desperate nature, and the bravery and heroic side that others see in you shines a light for Silver to discern his own character. His goal is largely self-centered, wanting to become the strongest with no consideration nor qualms as to how that happens, which, in Pokemon trainer terms, basically means he's a bully. He's not particularly fond of Team Rocket, you, or really anyone for that matter. Even when they're stronger than him for good reason. He looks at weakness with disdain, and doesn't believe in the positive factors of things like love and compassion. He is a straight hater. In contrast, you are, I hope, a very good trainer, with a good heart and soul. The player helps people out, and they in turn help them on their journey. They defeat Team Rocket handily, and several NPCs observe the bright relationship between their Pokemon and their character, a direct opposite of Silver. Acting as a foil is expected of a rival, and Gary, Wally, they all can be considered your foil, but they're at least effective at it or provoke a sense of a rivalry. Silver serves the foil at a basic conceptual level, but the execution does not meet the level set by other rivals. I'm looking primarily at the games and the remakes here, by the way. Not only is Silver more than likely severely underleveled compared to you, I'm led to believe he actually hasn't gotten any badges, and therefore has not truly tested his team's strengths nor advanced their potential. Nor has he actually probably listened to any of the gym leaders and their trainer philosophies. We can't make that estimate for every single rival, but for someone so focused on the idea of getting stronger, the Pokemon gyms should serve as checkpoints for their growth. It's been pointed out that many of Silver's Pokemon require trades to reach their final evolution, and his Golbat, a Pokemon that requires max happiness to evolve, does turn into a Crobat. This implies that he does have some level of trust that he wants to foster in other living beings, as well as a heart that does eventually go past the angst and anger. I'm not here to persuade you otherwise, but there's certainly plausibility for both sides of why that is and that isn't. A multitude of NPCs mention an aggressive redheaded trainer blitzing past them with a reckless and uncaring attitude. Crobat only occurs after you've conquered the Elite Four, at perhaps the height of his character development as a result of constantly getting beaten by you. And he never does end up evolving the rest of his team, which is particularly crippling when pitted into a 2v2 against current champion Lance and the final gym leader of Johto, Claire. He vows constantly to be the better of you, but a change of heart usually precedes a sense of character development. And I do believe that these little changes of heart reflect onto his team, even if evidence doesn't show it. But then again, why is he so antagonistic to begin with? Anyone with a Celebi knows what transpired between Silver and Giovanni. And when your father is a power-hungry and conniving leader of a criminal organization, it's not going to be a healthy relationship. No one with a heart would want to indulge in criminal and disruptive activity, especially when there's so many other alternatives to a better life, especially in the world of Pokémon. It is a lifetime of loneliness and uncertainty that Silver had been forced to follow. Understandably, Giovanni's abandonment left a horrible impression on Silver. Family trauma is definitely dark, especially for Pokémon, and it's bled into the core of Silver's character, that essentially, it is him versus the world. But that does make him treat it as if it's everyone else's problem. Not to say it's invalid, but it is still wrong. A point can be made that Hugh, the rival of Black-White 2, also makes his problem your problem. However, Hugh is a friend. He is introduced earlier in the game along with his family, and he's there with you for basically each step of the way, even supporting you in battle against Team Plasma. After all, they've wronged him, and now they are doing wrong to everyone else. Similar to Team Rocket, who, even without Giovanni's leadership, is involved in criminal activity. The protagonist was going to be at odds with either team regardless, but it is how their rival responds to and acknowledges the suffering they've endured because of the two teams that distinguishes them. Hugh has taken the suffering he has endured and made it his goal that no one else will suffer as he did. His courage is founded in a willingness to seek out justice. Silver has internalized the pain as his one motivation to become stronger, seeing his vulnerability as pathetic and using spite and strength above all else as his weapon. Both come to acknowledge your power and capability as a trainer, but only one of them acknowledges you as an equal, even a superior, in a healthy and respectful, albeit still competitive way. The other is leaning towards an obsession in proving that he is better than you, even in spite of all of the things he's had to reflect on over the course of numerous defeats. It doesn't help Silver that he is severely outmatched in each of his fights. Maybe it's just me being overleveled before, say, the Elite Four, but each time I've battled him, it's probably one of the easiest fights I have all game. Even with high expectations set by other battles like Whitney's Miltank and Claire's Kingdra, Silver just falls behind. Is it intentional to his character arc? More than likely. This is where I go back to my point in the beginning. I don't think he was meant to be an effective rival because you played that role. The aforementioned aspects of a rival actually fall onto you in better description than to Silver. If we flip the perspective, it makes more sense as to why Silver eventually grows as a person. You are his foil, you serve as a challenge, and you definitely have stakes in the storyline. Oh gosh, and you definitely have stakes in the storyline. And your silent protagonist treatment actually allows the spotlight to move onto the antagonistic Silver. He strove to be powerful while you just happened to be the one that he could use as a stepping stone. It's like how if you beat all the trainers in a route and just happen to get your levels up to an average or above average as expected of the current area or the next gym. Then you find your rival and think you can take them, when really they've also beaten all the other trainers while also putting in some additional work, Pokemon Center trips, XP sharing, and all else. They've put in the effort and then some in developing a team that is strong but also cared for. And so when you pit your team against theirs, those added factors work against you flawlessly. Frustration builds. You try again at a different time, and you still fall short. So, what's wrong? Is it your training style? Is it your team? Is it you? With each subsequent fight, you open up to the idea of change, of understanding the possibility of new opportunities from new perspectives, that perhaps your way was not the best way. It may have worked for a time, but its ceiling has been reached, and now there's no way to grow unless you come to an understanding within yourself that some things have to change. Silver's story is that of realizing what truly makes an individual, let alone a Pokemon trainer, reach the level of personal strength that makes them truly worthy of championship aspiration. That he even shows those flashes of character development already puts him in a category above other rival characters. For example, Gary is iconic, but he doesn't really change up until the very end when you legitimately beat him at his best. We see his development again in Johto when he is the final gym leader of Kanto, but since then, you're already playing a different trainer, not the one who awaits as the final challenge. What Silver displays is something beyond just a typical battle. It is being dynamic, that he has nuance and character, even if he makes it our problem. As the player, you do have to teach and show the ropes onto Silver, but it is more active in rivalry than just someone saying smell you later, or is just obsessed with being your rival. Silver never ends up becoming an actual challenge, at least to me who overlevels. But I don't think that was ever the point. Silver is effective even if only because of his deficiencies. Flaws help make a character, but when someone is so stubborn to the idea of change that it literally hurts them, at least within a gameplay technicality in the Pokemon franchise, one can't help but feel pity for them. Every other game, the rival has put up a decent fight, and helped ensure that the player would put in the extra work to help their team become better. Silver feels like a disgruntled shell of a challenge that ultimately is just there to fuel a different kind of fire, one that ensures the player will always stay ahead of them. Let's all be honest, we all didn't initially like him. He pushed us around and he treated us as if we were less than him. And it's kind of sad in hindsight. He's thinking he's getting better, while I and many other players are becoming the best. I suppose that is the lesson we can take from this seemingly one-sided rivalry, that comparison is ultimately fruitless. Where one has climbed a mountain, to another it is a hill. That we shouldn't put down others because of how little we think they've progressed, but instead encourage and help them actualize how far they've come. I mean, Silver's not going to be any better than the player. They would have reached the pinnacle of the known world by the time Silver can even consider the Pokemon League. But that's okay, because that's not for us to decide. Silver will get there, eventually. But that Silver even becomes just a better person, even if just by a little bit by the time you're about to reach the apex of the two regions, it's comforting to know that even the most troubled and dysfunctional people will have those opportunities to evolve in their own